Hey everyone, Joe Waxman, the mediocre astrologer. He's okay. What's up, everyone? Hope you're doing okay. In this video, I want to look at hard aspects between Saturn and Neptune. So, what does this combination bring? Saturn and Neptune. So, what is Saturn? Saturn is authority. It's older people. It's laws. It's restriction. It's no. It's hard work. It's denial. It's a pain in the butt. Nobody likes Saturn. Everyone wishes they didn't have their Saturn. That's not true. Um, People don't often like Saturn because Saturn makes you grow up. It makes you mature. Makes you work hard, right? It's going to tell you no when you want to hear yes. It's going to it's like an old taskmaster. It's just making you work your butt off for your gains, right? And it does not it oftentimes when you're young, Saturn can appear like literally like an older person in your life. Not like they can be older people, they can be parents, they can be grandparents, they could be bosses, they could be authority figures, people, lording over you, telling you what to do, and you don't want to hear it, you don't like it. Later, as we get older, or if you're particularly if you have a strong Saturn, you can embody Saturn at a younger age, then yeah, so that does happen as well. And then you become an authority, right? You become Saturnian, you become mature, you become a leader, right? Saturn is a leader. Saturn is the enforcement of the law, right? Um, yeah, and so initially, from what happens for a lot of people is that Saturn is projected outwards when they're young, as like that, like I said, older authorities and whatnot, taskmasters and things like that, bosses. And then we become Saturn, we become mature, we become a boss, we become a leader, right? Depending on the quality of everything, sign aspects, dignity, all that, right? And so what is Neptune? Neptune's a very nebulous planet. It is the outermost planet before Pluto that's like really a big planet. Like if you look at all the planets, like Neptune's really big, right? It's one of the ice planets that we got, there's Saturn and then Uranus and Neptune. Saturn is like the outermost planet we can see with the naked eye. And Uranus we can see sometimes, but they didn't really recognize it as a planet till much later. Mostly you need a telescope to see it. And then Neptune we can't see. But Neptune and Uranus are both very big planets. They're ice planets. They're frozen. They're blue, right? And so Neptune is very represents. It's associated with Pisces in the 12th house. Rules Pisces, co-rules it. Um, but it's associated with illusion, delusion, fantasy, creativity, expansion, boundarylessness, dreams, the subconscious, esoteric, spirituality, psychic intuition, right? Yeah, fantasy, delusion. Yeah, with Neptune, um, like Neptunian relationships, I'll say that they become overly idealized. People think this is not relationships, obviously, but to get an idea of Neptune, um, there's an over idealization and then a crash because then we start to see reality, like waking up from a dream. It has that quality as well. Like Neptune can be illusion, delusion, fantasy. Then you realize the illusion, delusion, fantasy. My camera's losing focus. Need a better camera, but um, yeah. So we wake up from that. Neptune can also represent drugs and alcohol, things like that. Loss, um, mental illness, even potentially because of the expansion of the mind. But it can be very creative, very esoteric, very spiritual. And so what happens when you get these two planets together? They seem quite different, right? Neptune's very hard, right? Rigid, material, structural. Neptune is fantasy expansion. And so like um there's different things. It depends on what kind of aspect, and we'll talk about that more. But it's sort of like a crystallization of the fantasy, right? And so there's something very creative about it, because if you can, like, imagine this thing and then bring it down to the reality, right? And then you can create art, right? You can create you can enact you can um, materialize your vision, right? It can be artificial in that sense too, right? Like there can be like I've seen it relate to plastic surgery, right? In the second house, because then it's like um, appearances and then fantasy and then crystallization of that fantasy into something that's plastic, right? But it's still that's art, right? That's what we do. Like we take a vision and then we're put it into clay or whatever, or painting or whatever, right? um, Music, so all the arts, invention. Like a lot of times you'll see it, anything with Neptune, you will translate well into movies, cinema, theater, TV, media, arts, creativity, all that. You'll see all that, right? Um, anytime there needs to be like glamour or fantasy or blowing up of something into something that it's more than it is, right? Because the fantasy, the delusion, right? And then Neptune will be involved. So leaders who are just like kind of over, like very dramatic leadership could be, but there could be also elements of deception, lies, things are not what they seem, things are maybe too good to be true, especially initially appear to like ideal, and then oh, that was not real, right? um Especially in terms of Saturnian things like leadership and authority, drugs and alcohol, right? um yeah. So let's look at some examples. We got a lot of examples as usual. But that's how we learn, right? That's the way to learn astrology. It's the proper way to learn, right? I'm not just selling you a gimmick to get likes and subscriptions from like cheap astrology videos. I want to share real knowledge with you. And I also learn too. So hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, book a reading with me. I'm available. So, first one is pink. We're going to do all the hard aspects. I'm skipping the easy aspects because you can sort of just um, put the two and two together. It'll be much easier, you know. All right, but here we have Saturn square Neptune with pink. It's in the ninth house. She's very adventurous, right? So that sort of makes sense. Pluto on the MC. Um, Neptune and Sag in the 12th, but first whole sign house. And with Saturn ruling most of the first house, but the second cusp, right? So her voice, her appearance, and so Saturn square Neptune, it's giving her this really exotic kind of appearance. I mean, she calls herself pink, right? It's a bit weird, right? Um, there is that square tension, right? The square is tension, right? It's both inner and outer. It's like the person carries that square within themselves, but it's also projected outward into the things that they do. It's not like an opposition where it's relational, you find it with another person or situation. This is like neither. It's in between. It's like the gray area. It's just tension, right? It's just like certain hardness and effort that's required, and she kind of has that quality. This Saturnian authority, especially in this kind of like heart. She has like, it's almost she's a woman, but it's a very masculine appearance, right? Masculine kind of image, right? And that's partly due to the Saturn. I mean, the very strong Virgo, but Saturn is here that's ruling her second house. Um, how she chooses to portray herself, right? And her voice being active, conjunct her sun, and Venus also, Venus ruling the MC, so that's, you know, MC Lord plus second Lord singing career. Yeah, and then so square. The Neptune is definitely giving this kind of exotic fantasy kind of theme that she has going on with the tension, right? Neptune in Sag seems pretty good. It's pretty generally she's got a lot of really strong. We got 17, 17, 17, 17, and 17. She's 17. I wonder what it was like for her on her 17th birthday. Probably pretty something. All right, let's keep on. Drew Barrymore. All right. So Drew Barrymore has the inconjunct. So the inconjunct is the most difficult. Um, yeah, it's the most difficult, I'd say. I mean, squares are tough too, but the inconjunct is like it's 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 difficult to put your finger on when, especially with an outer planet like this. So let's try and look at it. All right. Drew Barrymore. Saturn's ruling the eighth, ninth, and 10th cusp. So eighth cusp is kind of dangerous. Plus, it's opposite a very strong Mars. And so whenever like there's a really strong Mars or a really weak Mars that's in opposition, there's some danger there, right? Um, Now Mars is going to be dangerous towards Saturn and Moon. Moon's in Cancer, but still, I don't know. And obviously, like I don't think she was attacked or anything like that. If it was Sun, that would be even worse. Like it was a real strong opposition, like some others. But anyway, let's see. Saturn is the eighth lord. It's not in good dignity, but at least good thing Moon's here. But she had problems with drugs and alcohol, right? Especially when she was young. And we can see that with the inconjunct with Saturn to Neptune. Saturn's in conjunct the second, it's on the second house cusp, so that deals with food or consumption, right? Whatever drink, right? If you're injecting, that's still a second house thing, right? Because it's consumption. Even if it's not through the mouth, it's still it's what you're consuming. Um, I don't know what kind of drugs she did or whatnot, but definitely there's some issues there. The moon saves it, right? It didn't ruin her life. Gave her some experience. Moon is in good dignity in Cancer, obviously, and ruling the second house. But the Saturn's difficult here. And I mean, if her career was dependent on this Saturn, I would say, well, it's not great. But look at this. I mean, Jupiter, Venus, in Pisces in the 10th, so strong, right? Because Venus is exalted, Jupiter is in domicile, right? And then Sun in Pisces is going to strengthen that. She's very ambitious career. But yeah, also she had like sixth house is activated, especially with the North Node, and she has like a talk show um, yeah, she has a talk show, and she was on some other series. So that's a Sex House thing, the kind of regularity periodical. Sun is also trine Uranus and hard fortune, so that's really good here. But yeah, the inconjunct is certainly a challenge for her, especially with the debilitated Saturn. Saturn is dignifying the Mars, which is already exalted in Capricorn in the eighth, so it's very powerful, especially sexuality. Geez, and she's Mars in the eighth, especially a strong Mars, is going to be a boss. So, Tony Blair was the PM of the UK, and he has the conjunction on the sixth house cusp in Libra, so where Saturn is really strong. So, I mean, he was probably considered seen as like a very fair, balanced kind of workhorse, the sixth house. Um, and then Neptune is Neptune, Saturn in the sixth. So probably like really just kind of gave him this very glamorous image, right? Because Saturn is so strong here in Libra, exalted, right? I don't know if he trained as a lawyer, but probably with this combination, he could have been a lawyer. Uh, but just like this kind of image, the very powerful image with Neptune here, because it's going to be much stronger. Uh, so like the glamorous kind of leadership quality. And Saturn's ruling the 10th. Yeah. So um, daily, daily grind, hard worker. Let's keep going. Got a lot to look at. The conjunction will be the easiest aspect in this one. I mean the trines and obviously trines and sextiles. Well, I'm not going through them, but as far as the one hard aspects, all right. But so Pierce Brosnan was he's an actor, and he was 007. He was James Bond for a while. All right, so he's got Saturn and Neptune in Libra exact retrograde, but so it's 11th whole sign house, but ninth quadrant. So interesting, right? I mean, if you put the two together, you get 10th. But anyway, uh, prominent regardless. Um, Leader, balance, right? He has this very refined look, very refined, and that's his public appearance. And then this, Saturn in Libra conjunct Neptune, giving the glamour of the movie, the hype, the fantasy, delusion, expansion. Saturn is ruling the most of the first house and the second house. So voice definitely has got North Node in Aquarius, right? So for actors, that's going to be very prominent. Um, got this really intense in conjunct with Pluto and Chiron, which I mean that's I'd like to. I mean, I'd have to dig deeper to find out what that's all about. But there's something here to look at. Um, Interesting. Anyway, I don't know exactly how that plays out, but it's tying the Pluto is sextile to the Neptune and Saturn, so that's going to really help there. I mean, I'd say this is definitely playing into the James Bond thing because Chiron, remember, is something very unique. Yeah, it can lead to wounds, especially because when something's so unique, then it tends to be rejected, and then it's very painful, right? Everyone wants to fit in. It's kind of like the sheep mentality, the mob mentality. Nobody likes to think they're a sheep, but everyone wants to be sheepy. They would just want to agree with everyone else and be one of the crowd, right? And Chiron is something that's just not one of the crowd. So therefore it can be painfully wounded, but it can be very unique. And for like, if you're a star or celebrity, Chiron can be a great asset or an artist. Right? So yeah, I think that plays into his James Bond motif, especially, Pluto being very dangerous. Right. All right. Chris Brown. Uh, so yeah, Chris Brown, um, like hip hop R&B musician. Um, Look at that part of fortune right on. I wasn't looking at the part of fortune, but now I am. Um, yeah, it's Saturn, so really strong Saturn in Capricorn in domicile, conjunct Neptune by 1 degree in the sixth house, right? With Uranus in Capricorn, Saturn's ruling the sixth and the seventh. And so this is very, very hard working, right? And so look at this 10th house, very strong 10th house. Venus, Moon, Sun, exalted Moon, domicile Venus, Mercury in Gemini, Jupiter in Gemini, um, Mars and Can so violence, right? Chiron, yes, like sexual weirdness, you could say. Um, and that's opposite. Yeah, I mean, this is a little bit violent, and I know that we know that he was abusive, and he was probably abused when he was young too. I mean, Pluto, but let's get back to I want to look at the whole chart, but um, so we got this really nice trine between, the sun, Ceres sun, it's applying to um the 10th house, sixth house, 10th house. So he's like really hardworking and authority, and as far as like creative authority, right? And can just like bang out music probably on the regular. Like he's the type of person you like, Chris Brown, I need a song by next Thursday, and he'd do it, and it'd be like a banger, right? Especially with Uranus here, totally unique, and it's just um, Mercury is in conjunct Uranus, but that's okay because Mercury's really strong and it's pretty good combination with Uranus, so it's probably just like really dynamic. Right. In any case, that's a good one. Al Capone. Okay. Um, I love looking at all different kinds of charts. It's really fascinating. So he's got the opposition and Saturn conjunct the MC, so that's definitely the mark of a leader, right? A boss, authority, criminal. But I mean, MC Lord in the eighth and Scorpio, so yeah, series dealing with loss and crime and you know taking things that don't belong to him and then giving them back, right? Charity, eighth house. I mean, that's the thing about the criminals is like they'll take shitloads of money and then give back some and then like, to the people who need it. And then like of course the needy people, they're not getting it from anywhere else, so they love the criminals. That happens a lot. It's a common thing. Mars and Cancer, violent, Aries moon, right? But Pluto, part of fortune, Neptune in the fourth house. Um, in Gemini. So dealing with territory and travel or short distance travel, neighborhoods, right? Um, and then yeah, the opposition. So Saturn ruling 11th and 12th. So criminality, 12th could deal with like, drugs, especially trafficking, things like that, drugs, alcohol, especially, and then Saturn, Neptune as well, right? Pluto, Neptune, the destructive qualities of, let's bring out the destructiveness of Neptune, which here is going to be the drugs, alcohol, exotic things, right? So it's pretty straightforward. Opposition shows business, right? He's trading with others. You got the situation, the Al Capone, and then whoever is the other suppliers, where he's doing his business with. Agatha Christie, detective novelist. She was one of the most successful, if not the most successful, detective crime writers all time. And Neptune in the sixth, square Saturn. Not exact, but close enough. Right? Uh, Saturn is actually more square Pluto, but it's, Gemini, Pluto, Neptune. So Neptune for the fantasy, Pluto for the grittiness, Gemini for the writing, North Node for the real, moving into that direction, being pulled into that direction. Square Saturn, Saturn's ruling most of the first house and the second house. Jupiter's in the second. So that's interesting. So the aesthetic quality, right? The aesthetics of her writing, the value. She probably has a good sense of humor too. Jupiter and Aquarius. Um, but yeah, the writing comes from the Gemini. Let's see, Mercury. Uh, Uranus is conjunct the MC. It's going to be pretty good for like just being really unique, shockingly unique. Also Virgo and sixth house. Can be very academic, intellectual. And Libra's good. Libra's good for pretty much most things, right? The Saturn square, it's gonna add, a lot of intensity and grit, right? A lot of hardness. Um, what about the detective? I think that's Pluto and Gemini. Pluto and Gemini, because the curiosity and then the depth. And so there. Eric Clapton. He's like an old he's like an old person's guitar player. And I don't mean that just because he is old, because like Jimmy Page, you know, even Jimi Hendrix, like there's a lot more exciting guitarists than like Eric Clapton, who's kind of old and boring. Not that I dislike him or think he's not talented, I just think he's kind of boring. But that could be because um yeah, he's great, but he's mundane, right? Sixth house is pretty mundane, right? It's not very exciting. It's good for a lot of things, but not for excitement. Anyway, look at this grand water trine. He did have some losses. His son died, and look at that. Moon in Scorpio, conjunct Ceres in Scorpio in the first house, right? And then Mars in the fifth, Saturn's the fifth lord in Cancer, so it's uh, in detriment, but grand water trine. And Saturn, where's Neptune? He doesn't have a Neptune, amazingly. No, I'm just kidding. Here's Neptune. Saturn square Neptune. Neptune's in the 12th. And so this is quite a, there's going to be, I feel this kind of rock and rolly kind of thingy going on here. Let's see, Saturn's fourth. I mean, it's taking up most of his third house, and he's got a south node in the third. So that's definitely relating to his guitar, right? Because that's also Uranus and Gemini would be as well. And then also Mercury would, Mercury conjunct. I mean, it's out of sign conjunction, but still close enough to his ascendant lord, which is pretty strong in Taurus. Yeah. Saturn square Neptune. Saturn's in Cancer, so it's much more emotional Saturn, right? And so his music is it's going to be very feelings. It's a grand water trine. Yeah, and he's very soulful, very full of, feeling. And it's also this Neptune's also in conjunct Mars, right? Mars and Pisces, so very creative. Um, yeah. I mean, the square is just the bit of that, and especially with Neptune in the 12th, that this psychedelic or something very emotional, creative, with an edge to it. Right? Copernicus. Copernicus destroyed the flat earthers. the Not the flat earthers, the earth centric, the earth centers, right? He said, no, no, the solar system does not revolve around the earth revolves around the sun. He was a scientist. So Saturn in Gemini in the 10th, part of fortune in Gemini in the 10th, right? Saturn in conjunct exact Neptune and Scorpio. And I think here's the thing. If you have an in conjunct with Scorpio or Virgo, I think it works better because these are the kind of energies that are used to it. It's natural for Scorpio is in conjunct. Scorpio gets its nature from being in conjunct Aries, and Virgo does as well. Virgo gets its nature from being in conjunct Aries. That's why both these planets, both these signs have their nature, Virgo is service and fighting, right? Competition, right? Scorpio is dominating others or taking from others or being very charitable, right? Um, so those are the two sides. So yeah, I think this actually works. I think it works well because Saturn's in Gemini is being very sciencey up here in the 10th house, and it's in conjunct Neptune in the third, so his intellect. It's also got Uranus, it's Scorpio. It's Scorpio also very sciencey, deep diving, potentially sciencey rather, but it is deep diving, and Neptune for the imagination. He's also got his Mercury and Pisces and Ceres and Sun, especially. So the imagination is enhanced, right? So he's like thinking outside of the box. Also got the Aquarius, Mars, Chiron, so in the 6th house, so that's going to help as well, right? That's actually in aspect, especially this Chiron. So Chiron also is not just wounded here, like I always say, not just wounded healer. It's not just something unique. It's also Chiron was a teacher. So Chiron can add to the intellect, to science, to anything, because Chiron, even though we like to boil it down to one thing, like oversimplifying, Chiron, the wounded healer, but Chiron is complex, like all the planets, right? Chiron's not really a planet, it's a Chiron, right? It's its own thing, right? But also look at Pluto. Pluto and Virgo right in the first house, right? So it's got so many indicators of like this powerful, deep thinking potential, right? Gemini, Virgo, Scorpio, Aquarius. All right. Tom Cruise. Look, it's ridiculous. Grand Water Shrine. I mean, like every time you see Tom Cruise, he's got like the biggest smile in the world. He comes off as like, and that's okay. So Grand Water Shrine, Neptune, right? Neptune in the first. Um, and Neptune square Saturn. And Saturn's ruling the third and fourth. Um, and South Node Saturn. Um, so yeah, Tom Cruise, he's incredibly successful. Like we don't need to talk about that. Like hugely successful and hugely delusional. Like if you ever heard him speak, you're like, oh my God, this guy is just born for the movies and nothing else because his mind does not work properly. Like I'm sorry, Tom Cruise. Like you just live in the movies. You live in the movies and that's it. You live in fantasy land. You have no connection to reality, and just stick you on screen and that's it. We're done. You're not good for anything else. I may be overstating it, but it doesn't seem like he's really. I mean, he's the whole Scientology thing. I mean, Jupiter, Chiron, and Pisces. Jupiter stationary. Look at that. Chiron's retrograde. So yeah, like he's full of faith, he's full of belief, but he's also kind of delusional, right? Saturn and Neptune are both retrograde. They're square. Saturn's ruling the third, so that you gotta like he was crazy from a young age, right? Completely delusional, completely fantasy oriented, but great at movies. So anyway, just go listen to him talk about Scientology. You'll understand. Charles Darwin. Um, Charles Darwin, same birthday as Abraham Lincoln, but different rising. But he's got his Uranus stationary, but that's not what we're looking at. We're looking at Saturn and Neptune. Uh, Neptune, 1 degree from the ascendant in the 12th. Saturn's ruling the second and third. So intellect, right? Sagittarius, philosophy, Saturn, more sciency, right? And so we're getting that kind of creative um, you know, fantasy that it's coming down into reality, right? He's imagining all these things and he's bringing it into something real. There was also something kind of deceptive about Charles Darwin. I think he was a Mason, and the Masons are very tricky, very deceptive. They have the Neptunian quality, 12th house quality. They are a deceptive organization. They're a secret society. But he also has loads of Pisces here as well, right? In the third house. So it's not beyond him. I'm not just pulling this out of my butt, like um there's a lot of deception here. But it doesn't mean he was completely wrong either. It's just some obfuscation. Neptune can be like that, obviously. So can Pisces. Very imaginative, not always accurate, not always true. But anyway. Jeffrey Epstein. They say he didn't kill himself. I don't know. I'm joking. Of course, he didn't kill himself. Anyway, Saturn, Neptune. Saturn's in Libra in the 11th house, right? Let's see. Saturn is ruling the second and third. So especially values, group, right? Community, community of pedophiles in this case. But yeah, making money through all that value, um, deception, relationships, Libra, right? Um, yeah, see, if we want to talk about like little girls thing, all right, so look at the fifth lord, it's with Venus. So fifth lord with Venus, exalted, Pisces, right? Fourth house, home, secrecy. Anyway. Yeah, deceptive leadership here, right? He's not in the movies. He's not inventing um the next scientific theory. He's not a glamorous leader. He's a leader of deception, right? So you have to understand like Neptune is going to express itself in one way or another. If they're not, you know, this movie star, artist star, rock star, creative, or applying their creativity in some way, then they're going to be lying. They're going to be deceiving, right? Also, look at this Uranus trine the Mars and Venus. So something very shocking, right? And Chiron, unusual, different, unique. Anyway, values. So second house, resources, assets in the community, and community. So that Epstein Island, right? Um, so second house. So he's all about money and sleeping with little girls. Yeah. Pope Francis. So Pope Francis, obviously. All right. So let's see. Saturn, Neptune, right? Ninth house, Pisces. So yeah, definitely religious leader. Um, this is an opposition. There's some business going on here. Saturn's ruling the seventh and eighth. So yeah, I don't trust Pope Francis at all. Like I don't. Like he's not. First of all, I'm not a Catholic, so you're not going to get really anything positive from me about Catholicism, right? Listen, the Romans killed Jesus, and they created the Holy Roman Empire of Catholicism, right? I mean, what is so that's basically what I think about that. But even so, I think there probably are Catholics who are really genuine and sincere and fully believe in it. I think he's a fucking liar. I don't think he's Catholic even. I think he's a Satanist. I think he's Illuminati. I think he's just a puppet, and he's deceiving people. He appears like it, but it's got the opposition, right? What's that? What's going on there, right? Um, Saturn's ruling the eighth house. Yeah, it's ruling the seventh, but it's also ruling the eighth, and he's got his moon Venus in the eighth. Well, seventh, but it's coming up on the eighth cusp, right? And so Saturn's technically in the eighth quadrant, but close to the ninth cusp, right? But the ninth cusp makes more sense, so I'm calling it that. But secrecy as well, and occultism, right? Occultism. You look at the Vatican; it's full of occultic symbols, not Catholic, occultic, right? Pine cones, the serpent theater, you see photographs, it's a serpent's head, or the Jesus, or it's not even Jesus, it's Lucifer, falling from heaven. There's like a whole big statue there, right? It's full of occultic symbolism. Like these are and here's the long and short of that. The secret societies infiltrated the very dogmatic Catholic Church over time because the Catholic Church was in opposition to the secret societies, right? Catholic Church is like, no, you can't operate secret societies, and so they went into secret, obviously, and then over time, the secret societies became more powerful and co-opted the Catholic Church. That's the way it works. When you have like a very dogmatic enemy, you eventually that enemy is like will conquer you. Because if you're making it an enemy, you don't have to make it an enemy. They do. Anyway, deception, lies, deceit. Yeah, I don't trust him for 1 second. He's a liar. Look at his inconsistencies. He's not even Catholic. He's like he says some outrageous stuff. Not that I'm again. Anyway, let's move on. Hugh Hefner. Okay. This is a little bit wide square, but still it applies. Um, Saturn's in the third. Saturn is ruling the fifth and sixth cusp. So entertainment, daily grind. Saturn's in Scorpio, right? The sex is coming from Scorpio, not from the fifth house. People are like, oh, fifth house has to do with sex because romance. And yeah. Well, I mean, I can draw parallels to everything. I wake up in the morning and then, like everything's related, therefore all the houses are related, therefore everything's everything. Okay, and blah, 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 blah. Astrology, blah, blah, blah. That's what they're saying. Fifth house, blah, 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 blah. It's like I'm dumb, and my brain is mashed potatoes. Therefore, fifth house equals sex. Fifth house is not equal sex, and that's just wrong. It's wrong, and it's not even right. It's not even close to being right. It's just wrong. It's wrong, and it's wrong, and it's wrong. And if you're offended, you're wrong. Now you're right. I mean, you could be offended. I mean, you're not wrong, but you know, it's not. Fifth house is not sex. Fifth house is entertainment. And sometimes sex is entertaining, but that doesn't mean fifth house. It's like all the signs, yeah, they relate to each other, right? It's like, I wake up in the morning and I have breakfast and then I go to work and then, like I have lunch and then I have dinner and then I come home and I kiss my wife and then we go watch a movie, and so therefore everything is everything. And then so all the houses are related. You can draw parallels to all the houses because life is there's no real division, right? There's no division that divides day and night, summer, winter. It's all conceptual, but we have to understand how these delineations work. We don't have sex at the restaurant. Fifth house is going to the restaurant, going to the theater, have it with, hanging out with your kids, going to school and all that. You don't have sex with in any of those places, right? It's just stupid to say fifth house is sex. If you think fifth house is sex, you're fucking dumb and you shouldn't be in astrology. Like you should just walk away from astrology if you think fifth house is sex, because you clearly don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And fuck you. Go fuck yourself. So there's that. Anyway, back to you after Neptune, conjunct part of fortune, interesting, in Leo. So entertainment also here. And yeah, edgy, square. Right, the square is gonna bring in that edginess, tension. Right, this is not like easy peasy. It's not Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition. It's Playboy. Right, third house media, fifth house third house, sixth house regular publication, magazine. Right, so yeah, Neptune, Leo. I mean, it's really perfect, especially because it's conjunct the 12th house cusp, so fantasy, but Playboy Mansion, the community there is still pulling in that element. 11th, 12th. Yeah. Hulk Hogan. Oh yeah. If you grew up in the 80s, if you're a Gen Xer, you know Hulk Hogan, and you're just like, oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I think Hulk Hogan took his personality from the um what is it? The Kool-Aid guy. Oh yeah. They seem similar, at least in my head. Maybe they're I don't know. Anyway, let's see. Saturn and Neptune in Libra, very tight in the third house. So his expression, that's why I say it. That's why I'm saying, oh yeah, because it's third house. So it's his expression. And brother, that's all I can do. That's as far as my Hulk Hogan impressions go. But Saturn's ruling the sixth and seventh. So sixth house for conflict, for fighting, right? North node in the sixth in Aquarius. In the third house, hands. Oh yeah. But look at this 12th house, Leo. Dude is super duper confident. Pluto on the ascendant, Sun, Mars, South Node. The Leo 12th house, first house. Right. Anyway, Hulk Hogan. Oh yeah. Okay, enough of that. Michael Jordan. Look at this chart. Amazing. I mean, just a lot of red. So like a lot of friction, tension, hard work, right? Let's see here. Saturn, Neptune square. Okay. Sun, Saturn, eighth house, Mercury. So people often think about like fighting and competition in the sixth house, but the eighth house is a little bit different. The eighth house is domination. The eighth house is already, if you have planets in the eighth house, you feel like you already are the champ. Now you just need to prove it. Now you just need to even prove it. Now you just need to be there. It's already a done deal. It's like you've already accomplished that. Now we just need to rise to the occasion, right? So that's the feeling of planets in the eighth house. You already are the champ. Look at this, Jupiter and Pisces, conjunct the MC, really bring success to his career. But so very dominant, Sun, Saturn. right? Saturn's in dignity in Aquarius, and it's square Neptune in the fifth. Yeah. So fifth house entertainment. So this is great. This is great for a show because Neptune in the fifth is very glamorous, entertaining, right? Scorpio, powerful. And then eighth house, Saturn. So Saturn's ruling seventh and eighth and ninth cusp, really, but mostly seventh and eighth. So competition, others, relationships, like teammates, but dominating, very dominating behavior, and the tensity with the Neptune in the fifth. So just like really glamorous, right? Michael Jordan. I mean, he got his own shoe. The shoe is still popular. You still see the walk down the street, you're gonna see Jordans, right? Everyone loves them still to this day. And they came out in like the 80s, right? The original Air Jordans, they're so old. I mean, the 80s, that's like 40 years ago. People are still wearing them. It's amazing, right? So, yeah. Um, and like we don't think of Michael Jordan as like a really nice, like I'm sure he's a nice guy, but we don't think of him as like we think like power, like and dynamism, right? And like glamour, right? All right, Dalai Lama, Saturn, Neptune, Saturn in Pisces. Really, really interesting, right? Like the Pope had it conjunct the ninth cusp. He has it squarely in the ninth. Um, it's retrograde, but it's conjunct the MC, Lord, or the MC, sorry, MC, from the ninth. So philosophy, religion, but also career. And then like, we could look to Jupiter. Jupiter's in the fifth, Scorpio. But exile. Yeah. Um, he's got his moon and Neptune here in the third, but close to the fourth um cusp. And the Dalai Lama, he's not I interpret this a little bit differently because I know he was exiled, right? So Neptune is lost. He was exiled from his homeland. Right? And we can look to Mercury, so fourth lord in the 12th. It's in good dignity in Gemini, but so yeah, home, foreign land, exotic, right? He was exiled, if you know anything about the Dalai Lama, but very spiritual, very watery um person. Um South Node, South Node Pluto, very powerful but destructive past. That's true. Um and the moon is his ascendant lord. So he himself is, yeah. So, and Neptune also in Virgo is not going to be in great dignity because it rules Pisces. But yeah, but very spiritual. Brie Larson. Okay, why did I put Brie Larson in here? I don't even know who she is. Um, Brie Larson. Who is she? Who is she? She's an actress, I think. But anyway, very powerful career. You can read her chart nonetheless. So it's a little bit more interesting. Anyway, Saturn, Neptune, also Uranus in the 10th house. So definitely a leader in fantasy, right? So I think she's an actress. And yeah, so strong leadership. But look at this. All this red, really intense. She's going to play very intense roles. Um, I'm going to be right back. All right, I'm back. Use the restroom. And I just looked up Brie Larson. I forgot who she was. She's Captain Marvel. So yeah, Captain. I mean, Saturn is Captain. Saturn, especially Saturn in Capricorn, right? So this is very good, right? Uranus, something very shocking. I mean, shocking, shocking career, exciting. Neptune. There should be some Chiron. So Chiron's in the fourth with Jupiter, right? Chiron is kind of opposite. So yeah, I say Chiron because like the superheroes are pretty chironic, right? Like when you act like people who play superheroes, that's usually there's going to be a chironic element there. But yeah, Captain Marvel is perfect for her. I mean, it was like Captain, screams Captain, Captain in a movie Captain, fantasy Captain. All right. Cyndi Lauper, Saturn, Neptune in Pisces, Libra. Sorry. Stationary Saturn, very powerful. Ninth house. You know, girls just want to have fun. Yes. That's her ascendant lord. Ninth house, fun, celebration. Right? Yeah, you could say eighth house, but it's pretty close to the ninth house, right? And because that's her ascendant lord, and she wrote girls just want to have fun, I think it's ninth house mostly. Um, because if it was in the eighth house, it would be girls just want to have sex. That's not what she wrote. All right. It's also the 12th lord. And yeah, I mean, I think, if you look at she's highly creative, but also her appearance is pretty wild. Right? That's not just the Neptune, but the Neptune definitely, because that's her ascendant lord, right? So she could probably live a long life, but I mean, stationary Saturn, that's in you know, exalted. Yeah. But yeah, the Neptune, and then the square to Uranus is also going to in series. I probably not. No, I don't know how Ceres affects the appearance, but Uranus would definitely make that square gives wild quality. Also square to Chiron. Interesting. Yeah, definitely a unique one. Cyndi Lauper. Oh, I have Marine Le Pen in here twice. Okay, so that means there's only 39. That's okay. All right, Marine Le Pen. She a French politician who ran for the president of France and did not win. But we can look at why. So she got so she got Neptune stationary, which is interesting in the second house. In conjunct Saturn. It's not really showing, well, you can see a little bit here, but anyway. So Saturn's not in great dignity. It's in Aries, so it is debilitated, and Saturn's ruling the fourth and the fifth. So fourth house for representing homeland, right? So politics. And so like, yeah, it's no wonder she didn't win because she's not that strong with this Saturn. Um, so the Saturn Neptune is going to, I mean, the Neptune is strong, right? Neptune is in a dominant position. So her appearance is something of glamour, of fantasy, of like bigger, right? But then the Saturn, then the reality is a bit too harsh. To Saturn in Aries can be kind of like dictatorial because Saturn's very selfish. If you have law or authority that is kind of selfish, it's dictator, right? But uh let's see. And then Mars in Cancer right in the 10th. So, she loses her temper, just starts treating people like shit, but she's very ambitious. Sun in, and confident. Sun in Leo, Mercury, Venus in Leo, right? But yeah. But she probably blows it. She probably is like people are like super impressed by her, then they get a little bit closer and she's like a cold mean bitch. I'm sorry, but like yeah, like super confident, but Capricorn moon, Saturn in Aries, Mars in Cancer. I mean, forget it. She just loses her temper, a selfish leader, and cold-hearted, right? Underneath, like not necessarily cold, but well, potentially, potentially. Jupiter's in Virgo, so yeah, it's like yeah, getting there, but yeah, not quite. You know, Jared Leto. Um, he's an actor, obviously, and played the Joker. Got Saturn and Gemini in the first, and opposite Neptune. So that's pretty, I mean, that's pretty good for acting. So let's see. Saturn is ruling the MC, and then the ninth. Um, so North Node conjunct the MC with Venus. So that's good for his career. Mars and Aries, that's good. Um, Sun and Capricorn in the eighth. So definitely a very dominant type personality. Jupiter and Sag, Mercury and Sag. But yeah. Um, so yeah, MC Lord in the first, Gemini. So the expression, Neptune, great for acting. Abraham Lincoln, same as Darwin, same day. Stationary Uranus in the ninth. So his philosophy, his um belief system was very strong and Uranian, believed in freedom, believed in social issues, but balanced, stationary is balanced, powerful. Right? Aquarian, um, sun and ascendant. So like social, but we're not talking about that. Saturn, Neptune. So yeah, a very glamorous leader, very a leader for the books, the leader we can remember forever, like a story, like a movie, right? Because of the Neptune, glamorizing Lincoln, making a big statue of him. Pretty self-explanatory. It's conjunct the MC. Yeah. Could there be deception here? Yeah. Uh, but because North Node Uranus is very wants the truth. So I mean, I think yeah, there could be some glamorization, but I think overall, and then Pisces, highly lots of imagination, but like definitely he wanted the truth. He was going for the truth. There could have been a lot of stuff, very nuanced. Life is full of contradictions. Bob Marley, your grand water trine was part of fortune. Anyway, so Saturn's in Cancer and Neptune's in the 10th, and that's a square. And in fact, Saturn is dignifying the Libra, Chiron, Neptune because of Saturn's exalted in Libra. Um, Interestingly, sixth lord is in the fourth, in detriment, Venus in detriment. So that would be his health. And then Jupiter also in Virgo, because he died of cancer, right? So Jupiter is great for career success, but it's as ascendant lord in Virgo, that's not great. Anyway, um, Saturn is ruling the second and third. So that's interesting because so like yeah, okay. So South Node exalted Mars in the second house. So yeah, definitely he was a singer, right? And he had a very unique voice, right? Um, the Saturn's ruling the second and third, so the voice and the expression. Sun is in the third, Mars in the second, South Node, Mercury also, and second, third whole sign. But then Saturn is not so good. And it is in the seventh. So that would have influenced his relationships, obviously, and deception. He was deceived by others, for sure. Somebody deceived him, partnership. I don't know who deceived him, but in fact, I've heard, and this is just speculative, but I heard he was too much of a troublemaker, so they gave him cancer. They can do that. They have cancer guns or cancer weapon. Like they can give people cancer. So I don't know if that's what happened. Possible. But yeah, I mean Saturn's also trine Ceres in Scorpio, which is not good. That signifies loss. But the Saturn square Neptune, Saturn in the seventh, eighth whole sign house. Square Neptune. That's deception. So yeah, somebody deceived him. Partnerships. Marilyn Monroe. So Neptune in the first, very glamorous, right? In Leo, direct. Conjunct Ceres, interesting. And she died of drugs and alcohol, right? Ceres is loss, usually. Where's Saturn? So square. Saturn's in Scorpio in the fourth. Saturn is ruling the sixth and seventh. Um, this would have to do with her relationships and also her daily work, her daily routine. Uh, there could have been people in her life that deceived her. I mean, Saturn in Scorpio retrograde. It depends. It depends how it's used, but for somebody like Marilyn Monroe, it does not feel good. It feels a little bit too heavy, too deep, too dark. She died at home, and drugs and alcohol were involved, obviously. Of course, Mars and Uranus are in the eighth in Pisces, so that also points to that. So I don't know. I think it was tied. There were perhaps ties to her people who she worked with on a regular basis, as well as partnerships um, that were somewhat deceptive in her home, from her hometown, somehow related to her home. Right? I think people were trying to take advantage of her because she was so talented and successful. And perhaps people thought, especially with Neptune on the rising, that they could take advantage, even though she's very capable. Elon Musk, North Node Mars in Aquarius. It's the same as Mark Wahlberg, Marky Mark. But Chiron, right on the MC. Is Elon Musk a wounded healer? Or is he a maverick? Is he one of a kind? Is he just like unique as can be, right? That's more likely. Um, Neptune, Neptune, Jupiter, Neptune, Saturn. Saturn ruling most of the seventh house, but the eighth house. So something very deep, hidden, secretive in the 12th, opposite Neptune. In Gemini, Sag, with Jupiter. Jupiter is actually dignifying this Neptune because Jupiter rules Sag and it's close enough. Even though it's not in, even though it's in Scorpio, it's still dignifying this Neptune. So something about his daily work is going to be very Neptunian, right? Just undefined. Like, so I would think with this, so his daily routine looks like whatever it looks like anything it could be like he's just making it up like all the time. It's going to be different. He has no routine. It's just complete blah, right? Um, but he's the boss at the same time. And Saturn in Gemini is pretty kind of scientific-y, sciencey, right? It's ruling the eighth house, so that Tesla, SpaceX, deep, the Boring Company, boring holes in the ground. So like Aquarius is space, eighth house is holes in the ground, right? Mars is cars, Aquarius is electricity. This is also humor. He's a funny guy. So yeah. Um, Twitter or X is Gemini. right? Social media. Um, so yeah, there, I mean, there's just so as a leader, he's kind of um Neptunified, just like glorified, expect like fantasy delusion, Elon Musk, right? Something like that. Eighth and the 12th is going to, I mean, I'm calling it the 12th because it's 2 degrees from the 12th cusp, but yeah, I mean it's first whole sign house because he's Gemini, but anyway, it's so far removed. So it's very 12th. Um, eighth and 12th is very psychological, mystical, deep, right? Deep thinking. And if he's not a spiritualist, he's going to be very deep diving, like um really in tune with something. I mean, Gemini, so water signs in the eighth, in the air signs in the water signs is very brilliant as far as like depth. So he's like very deep thinking, right? And imaginative, creative leader, visionary leader. AOC. With all these squares, she's always going to be fighting, always going to be fighting. Then she's got Uranus, Saturn, Neptune in the first house, moving into the second, but still in the first. So yeah, I mean, very authoritative, right? At least in her own mind. The Saturn's ruling the second and third, so her expression, her speech, um, you know, what can I say? I mean, like, I'll say this: she's popular. I mean, she's like where everyone talks about her, even though she's dumb as a box of rocks. The Saturn and Capricorn conjunct Neptune really kind of glamorize her, over glorifies her, right? It's opposite Jupiter and Cancer. So she probably does care. I think she's just totally delusional, right? She got her Sun and Mars in Libra. So it's kind of a weird combination because they're both import dignity here in the 10th house. It's aggressive, but it's passive aggressive. It's just I don't know, not enough integrity for me, especially with this, right? Sun and Mars in Libra. Um, anyway, yeah, that's why we're talking about her, I think, because of the Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus. Yoko, oh no. Yoko, oh no. Oh no, it's Yoko. Oh no. Here comes Yoko. um, let's see, Saturn, Venus in the fifth. So Venus is her ascendant lord, Saturn is in domicile in Aquarius, fourth, fifth. So she's bringing her hometown, her homeland, Japan, into entertainment. And yeah, and then so where's Neptune? Where's Neptune? Neptune. So that's an inconjunct. Yeah, yeah. And that makes sense because it's totally missing, right? Her music was not good. Her music was not good. Nobody likes her. Nobody likes Yoko Ono, except John Lennon. He's like the only one in the world who likes Yoko Ono, and probably her kids. I mean, I'm obviously being a bit dramatic there, but oh no, Yoko was not very popular. Anyway, um, so fourth, fifth, Neptune in conjunct. South node, Neptune, Mars. So Neptune. So what's interesting is that Uranus is in Aries in the seventh, so that describes John Lennon. Also, Mars and Virgo conjunct Neptune, Jupiter, right? And South node. 12th house, something exotic, foreign. To her, he was exotic and foreign because he's an American, she's Japanese. So that's interesting. 12th house, right? and really describes kind of, John Lennon, um, here and here. And in conjunct with her, they didn't fit. That's what you're seeing here. Neptune tied to the seventh lord and the south node in conjunct Saturn and her, Venus, right? It's like a weird combination. Yeah, they were together, but it didn't work that well. Everyone thought they were a bad. I think people even blamed her for breaking up the Beatles, right? So that's kind of like this in conjunct, right, to her Saturn, fourth lord, fifth lord, entertainment, her music, and her influence on him, romance, Venus, right? In any case, in conjuncts are not very smooth. Uh Jordan Peterson, South Node Saturn, and then we got Neptune square, right? That's a tight square. Neptune and so yeah, I mean face so Saturn's ruling the MC. Yeah, MC is 10th house all the way, right? So his public leadership, right? Saturn's in good dignity in Aquarius. It's in the 10th house. It's ruling the 10th house with the South Node and part of Fortune. So people see him as like this Aquarian, abstract thinking leader, and the square Neptune in the sixth. So he's like dealing with some squaring off with some fantasy, some psychological fantasy, sixth house. This is both internal and external, right? Internal, it is very psychological, right? Psychology on a daily as a daily kind of theme, very, abstract because Neptune. But also like the fantasy, the psychological fantasies that he squares off with, like the whole like woke stuff. I'm not gonna get into it, but all that, the gender bending stuff, all that. Yeah. He squares off with it. Mars is involved, so the nodes, yeah, part of his destiny to square off with that. Mr. Putin, everyone's other favorite president. Everyone thinks like Russia is like the axis of evil. I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think it's like propaganda, Western propaganda to make Russia look bad. It's not. They're just another I don't think they're great. I don't think Putin's a saint, but they're another country and they're looking out for their own interests. And Biden's pretty fucking evil. You want to know who's more evil between Biden and Putin? It's Biden by a billion miles. Putin isn't. It's not. I'm not saying he's a great guy, but Biden is way more disgusting human being. I have a sixth sense about these things. I mean, I got Pluto in the 12th, Sun and Venus in the 8th. They're trying each other, and I just know what's going on behind doors. Scorpio rising and all that. Anyway, it's amazing how many politicians have very active 12th houses. It means they're dealing in secrecy. They're dealing in like the underground currents of things, behind closed doors, things like that. And that's also how they get elected, right? You have to be in the secret club. It's also where secret societies are. Like eighth house is occultism, but like the secret societies themselves are very much 12th house, I believe. Any case. Um, Saturn, Neptune in Libra with Sun and Mercury in the 12th house. Yeah, so it's glamorizing, it's glorifying his leadership, right? And Saturn's exalted in Libra. Scorpio rising, exact same degree as me. We're like the same person. Well, no, we're not, but similar rising. Anyway, he got Venus on the first. Um, I don't know. Saturn is ruling third and fourth. So homeland, right? Concerns, third house intellect, um, creative leadership, glamorous leadership, things like that. Aishwarya Rai. She is a Bollywood actress, very famous, and I think she's married to Bachchan, the most famous, I forget his first name. Amitabh Bachchan. Yeah, very favorite. Like the biggest Hollywood. They're like the Brangelina Jolie of Bollywood. Brangelina, 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 Brad Pitt. Yeah, Brangelina. Anyway, you get it. Yeah, Saturn, Saturn in conjunct Jupiter, and Saturn in conjunct Neptune. So yeah, so basically a yod to her Saturn. That's what they call it. Two in conjuncts. Saturn is ruling the first and second. So that's their ascendant lord. And actually, that would be problematic because, you know, debilitated or detriment ascendant lord, but it's opposite moon, not exact, but still mutual reception, you know, moon in Capricorn, Saturn in Cancer. They're both in each other's sign, mutual reception. That means her and her husband are all about each other, right? Because she's in the seventh, well, close in the sixth, so she probably serves him, comes underneath him, but he definitely is right all up in her first house, right? And they complete each other because they're both a little bit weak, but they find strength in each other. They support each other. So that's like a binding, that's maybe a codependent relationship, maybe. But um, it's in conjunct Jupiter. And then Jupiter actually dignifies it even more because Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. So that's good. And then not so much Neptune, but that's Neptune is just great for acting, right? And then the sixth house. I don't know what movies are. This would be great for regular, right? Regular because it's still pulling in that sixth house element of the regularity. But the Neptune is very expansive and great for movies as well. Um, Even though it's in conjunct, it's in Sag, and that's quite good, and it's close to the 12th house cusp, 11th, 12th. So anyway, the roles that she might play in movies might be like kind of one of subservience, perhaps dominance sometimes. Um, but yeah, it's in the sixth to Jupiter and in the eighth to Neptune. So yeah, definitely like power play issues. Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, um, Saturn, Neptune, opposition, right? And that's good for movies and stuff like that. Glamour, Saturn's in the second, or sorry, Neptune's in the second, Saturn is in the eighth, right? So voice and very dominating kind of leadership. Um, Saturn is ruling the fourth and fifth, so entertainment and representing the homeland. He's an islander, a Hawaii islander. Not a very nice person, if you want to know my opinion, but he plays one on TV. Plays a nice guy on TV or in the movies. Yeah, one of those, one of those guys. Perhaps a little deceptive. Paul Rudd. Um, Paul Rudd's hilarious. He's not like a main. He's not like a independent comedy star. He's always playing roles with others, right? And that's kind of obvious. But he's got South Node Uranus, and that's in Libra. That's where the comedy mostly comes from. Um, but the reason he plays like a supporting role or like a co-role is seventh Lord is in the 10th, and it's not great dignity. The Sun is, and Venus is not. Excuse me, Venus is not also. The Sun is exalted. Um, but then so Saturn's in Aries, and Saturn is debilitated, and it is uh, in conjunct Neptune. Neptune and Scorpio in the fifth. A lot of fifth house activity with Moon and Mars. Neptune. Neptune is trine the ascendant, so that's great for acting. And yeah, he plays these goofy roles, right? Not strong leadership. Um, and the roles he plays are always like it's never just Paul Rudd, right? Paul Rudd, main action comedy star. No, it's Paul Rudd plus somebody else. But he's great nonetheless. Yeah. I mean, just the inconjunct shows like relationships, but like unbalanced relationships or unbalanced situations. It's almost like a situational comedy, like goofy Paul Rudd does stupid things with co-star. Winona Ryder, big in the 80s and 90s, I guess. Um, Gen X, Gen Xer. Um, let's see here. Saturn and Neptune. That's not even really tight, so I'm just gonna briefly, we're not even gonna spend a long time here, but it's an opposition. Saturn is ruling the second and third. So yeah, for speaking and it's Gemini, so communications, sixth house. So a regular or supportive role, right? Not super powerful. But not bad. It's also in conjunct the sun. Um, a lot of Scorpio for those dark roles, Beetlejuice, things like that. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Jupiter and Sag, that's good. Um, Neptune in the 12th. Will Smith. Will Smith. Mr. Will Smith. I kind of feel bad for Will Smith because, like, even though he's like a mega superstar, I think he has it hard. I think he does. I'll tell you why. Because, first of all, it's okay. Jupiter's in Virgo, Pluto. So, like, his relationships are bad, and we know that. And then, like, so there's this. So Saturn also has a yod to it with um, Pluto. That's rough, right? Pluto, exactly in conjunct Saturn's ruling. Uh, most of the eighth. I mean, it's the 29th, so that's Jupiter, but ninth, ninth is luck, philosophy, and it's not in good. It's not. It's in the 11th house. Um, his leadership, his authority, it's not well respected. I mean, nobody respects Will. Like once you get to know him, not I don't know him, but I'm just saying. Saturn's in Aries, retrograde, and it's in conjunct Pluto. And Pluto's in Virgo, so Saturn's, I mean, that's okay. But then we get Moon, Neptune, and Ceres in Scorpio dominating. Moon, wife, Moon, heart. So he's overpowered by his heart, his authority. He loses authority, loses his cool. Saturn in Aries, kind of a dictator, right? And it is tied into Jupiter. So remember how he reacted with Chris Rock? That's a very Saturn and Aries kind of thing because Saturn and Aries is kind of selfish, right? Supposed to be a good leader. He lost respect because of that. He had to apologize. Community. So anyway, um, oh well, he'll recover. But yeah. So this is not great, but we see it like the sixth house activation for TV shows, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and all that. Um, Mercury, Venus, Ascendant Lord Venus is in Libra, but he'll recover. But that is difficult, right? Not easy. Deception, yeah. Taylor Swift, Swifty, Saturn, Neptune, Capricorn, second house, voice, appearance, all that, right? And I pointed out how Pluto was transiting here, and she totally changed her persona, her appearance at least, right? Um, her style, her second house. But yeah, it's conjunct here. Saturn's in great dignity. So yeah, she's got this very glamorous look, unique, Mercury, Uranus, all that. So no need to blame for that. Mars and Pluto in Scorpio, Mars conjunct the ascendant. So, yeah, Tina Turner. Um, really unique chart. All over the place, but yeah, a lot of difficulties too. Saturn, Neptune, exactly in conjunct. Saturn ruling the seventh, sixth, and seventh. Sixth house bringing conflict, seventh house partnerships. We know that she was abused by her husband, and probably deceived. So Saturn in Aries, in conjunct Neptune in Virgo, right? And then so Saturn's in the dominant position, and it's the seventh house, and so that is abusive. South node, ninth house. So ninth house would be like a teacherly type person, right? She probably looked up to her husband, but he was abusive. Lies, deception, um, perhaps drugs and alcohol. Neptune and Virgo as well. It's not the best sign for Neptune. So yeah, that's a difficult one. Dominating behavior from Saturn, partnership and conflict, fighting. So yeah, yeah. Um, Jupiter is in Pisces, just by the way, and she did be take on like Eastern spirituality, especially as she got older, and that's tied to her North Node. Even though it's an inconjunct, it's still activating that. Interestingly enough. Marky Mark. Yeah, we just did. What? Wait, hold on. Uh, Hold on. I have to check it against Elon Musk. So he's born my birthday, 1971, and Musk is born, okay, same year, but same month, but obviously Cancer, right? Cancer sun. Yeah, so different. So almost exactly the same as me. Well, mine's 15. So I guess year by year it's slightly off. We know that from solar returns, but anyway. Um, Saturn, where's Neptune? Neptune. So that is an out of sign opposition. That's interesting. Right. Neptune is conjunct as part of fortune, and it's almost on the sixth cusp, but you can say fifth quadrant, fifth, sixth. But it's moving from the fifth to the sixth. And was he in any TV shows? Not that I know of. He's always in movies. All right. So anyway, Saturn is ruling the seventh, eighth, ninth, and yeah, so partnerships, intimacy, but also his ninth house, so philosophy, religion, celebrations, um, 11th house community. So yeah, I don't know enough about like I don't know anything about his partners, right? I know he dated China Chow, and I know that obscurely because I knew China Chow, but yeah, it's my connection to Mark Wahlberg. Um, it's also connected to Mercury and Venus. Venus is in domicile, so it's dignifying the Mercury and the Saturn. But yeah, so seventh house is it just generally it's I mean it's good for others, other relationships. Eighth house, which is North Node Mars. So like kind of like this, when he plays like kind of like deep, gritty roles, more powerful roles, that's gonna be part of it, you know. The ninth house, I don't know, venture, travel, well, high level. And then groups, networks, career success here. Um, it's just good. I mean, it's good for movies. Mostly it's because so we see the North Node Mars in the eighth. and he works out. He's buff, right? He's very Martian, right? And then eighth house is very dominating. So he plays these kind of like tough guy roles, right? And then, so that's good for the movies. And then Jupiter is MC Lords in the fifth and Scorpio. And Scorpio. So that's also like the grittiness, right? So we're getting the Scorpio and the eighth house and the North Node Mars. So yeah. Paul Walker. Eesh. I mean, his chart is so intense. Like this guy, like I bet if you knew him, you'd just be like, you just couldn't relax. Like just so intense, right? Um, South Node Saturn in Cancer. So Saturn is in detriment in conjunct Neptune. Saturn ruling the fifth and sixth. So is fun and daily grind in the 10th house. Cancer South Node, deception, drugs, alcohol. Fourth house deals. I mean, it's home and land and like, but it's also can represent automobiles, cars itself. Not driving. Driving would be like third house. So third lord in the ninth. So like he likes to drive. He likes to be adventurous when driving. It's also not good dignity there. But um, this is kind of destructive leadership. I mean, but the Neptune is great for again for the movies, acting. Um, but Saturn in Cancer is just not very mature, not very responsible, overly emotional, right? Um, and having fun publicly, right? Fifth house. Um, yeah, deception, loss, series also not good, right? So of course he dies, right? Spoiler alert, but you already knew that. Pluto is square the nodes, so that shows a certain kind of destiny. It's in the first house, and Mercury is the ascendant lord. It's close to it, so yeah, not so not very not very savory there. Ceres is square the ascendant too. Not very good there. Sag travel, and lastly Oscar Wilde. So literary leader Saturn Gemini 10th house, right? Saturn Neptune Pisces um in the seventh. So yeah, it's really interesting. I mean Oscar Wilde is very controversial, I guess, especially back in the day, because he was like gay, he was gay and he was like erotic and risque and provocative. And even in real life, he was getting into trouble with all the stuff that he was like, writing about with fantasy. Neptune and Pisces in the seventh is going to have like very like what kind of partnerships is he going to have? Like totally gay ones. Like, I mean, I don't mean any disrespect either. I'm just saying, like Neptune and Pisces, he's gonna go for like the gayest gay guy ever. Um, he might have been bi, I don't remember, but you know, um, his way of relating to people was just complete extravagance, right? And it's square his public authority, literary authority. That's other people, deception, um, yeah, lies, and he might have been lying. He might have been a liar. He might have been a storyteller trying to deceive people. Um, Saturn is ruling the fifth and sixth, so entertainment and daily kind of nose to the grindstone, but highly creative. Uh, yeah. Mercury is in the third. Mercury is the MC Lord and the Ascendant Lord in Scorpio. Um, yep. Venus is in Libra, Sun's in Libra. Yeah, really intense here. All right. That's pretty much it. I hope I explained all these well enough. Um, it's hard to do on the spot, and I don't really like go through all of it. And like if I do, it's too daunting, and I'll never make a video. Like if I'm gonna go through each of these 40 charts and like really kind of understand deeply where how these placements are, I'd have to do research. It would be so much. I would just never get it done, right? Um, so I do it on the spot. I'm Gemini. That's what I do. Um, so anyway. I hope you enjoyed that, guys. That's Neptune, Saturn, and I'm not gonna go over it again. I already went over it. So I hope it all makes sense to you and I hope you enjoyed it and got something out of it. Hit that like button if you can. Subscribe if you haven't already. Book a reading with me, macrogolmachine@yahoo.com. That's my email. And um, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. I will see you again soon. Mediocre astrologer signing off. He's okay. Guys, laugh it off. Take a victory laugh. Win before you win. And I will see you again soon.